Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux here with a review for Swamp Thing 2, Swamp Harder, also known as Return of Swamp Thing. This movie is so bad. It is almost indescribably bad. Like, what tone is this movie going for? I have no idea what was going on. Is it supposed to be campy? Is it supposed to be funny? Is it supposed to be scary? Is it supposed to be gross? Is it supposed to be like an action movie? Is it supposed to be a horror movie? It doesn't work on any of these levels. This is the comic book equivalent of doing like a trauma movie without any of the offensive kind of material or the weird charm that comes with those movies. This is just simply bad. And it's weird because it's also a direct sequel to the first movie while also being essentially a remake of the first movie because presumably a lot of people hadn't seen it or so much time had elapsed they were like, oh, let's just try this again. But then let's reuse clips from the previous one. I don't know. It's bad. The one improvement is Swamp Thing looks beefier, but he doesn't look great either. He looks almost in a weird way more artificial. Like the first time around, you could tell he was somewhat artificial because of budget limitations. But it had like a organic nature to it as well, so that I kind of bought it. They tried to make this more brimming with life, this version of Swamp Thing, and weirdly it's like they overcorrected and then it became more artificial. It's weird. Heather Locklear is the love interest. She is nowhere near as compelling or interesting of a character as Alice Cable. But the one thing I will say for this film's positive is that Heather Locklear is good enough given the material she's given. Like, she's a gifted enough actress to kind of make it work. And her character, as well as the Alice Cable character, had agency, which is something that you didn't necessarily see in comic book movies of the era. Neither Cable or the forgettable character that Heather Locklear is in this movie are damsels in distress to be like hung over the moon, kind of like Muriel Hemingway was in Superman for the Quest for Peace. They aren't merely screamers calling out to be saved like Lois Lane. They do take a little more charge in the action scenes that are present. Much more so Alice than this character, but I do have to give it props for being somewhat progressive or forward-thinking for the era of comic book films that they were in. But this is bad. This movie has exactly one moment that is worth watching. And it is in the trailer, so just watch the trailer. And I'm going to spoil that moment for you. It's when Swamp Thing comes in and saves Heather Locklear, and then she's kind of coming on to him in that moment, and he says, like, lets her down gently, saying something to the effect of, "It would never work between us." To which she replies, "Why not? I'm a vegetarian." And I had to slow clap that one into a grandiose applause because it was possibly one of the greatest lines written in the 80s. I kid you not, I was like, that was true inspiration right there. I loved it. But that's the only thing worth watching about this movie. It is bad. There's like other monsters in this movie that, like, the makeup is good, but again, it's like weird two-toned. The creature effects look better suited for something like the live-action anime versions of The Guyver, if you remember that with Mark Hamill. The creatures look like the Zonoids from those movies, but they just don't really seem to fit into the Swamp Thing world. The other thing I would recommend is the opening credits to this to show you pages from the Swamp Thing books, and then you're like, man, the artwork in those books is really good. It makes me want to pick up a DC comic. But yeah, the biggest issue with this movie is that it was on the precipice of change. This movie came out mere months before Batman '89. And with Batman '89, you got an entire change, an ushering in of a new comic book era. Really for only one hero, but it was the start of something more that was not grounded in this campy reality that we'd come accustomed to with the latter Superman sequels, or this incarnation of Swamp Thing. or earlier incarnations of Batman. What Batman 89 would go to do is try and legitimize, at least on some respect, the nature of comic book storytelling in a visual medium. So this has to be recognized as the end of an era and the tipping point into something that would become much better. Up next, I will have a review for you for Batman 89. Until then, thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.